that's that. All right. This is your host of the most, Marcos. I'm here in sunny side Dubai. It's been a couple of days, or actually a couple of weeks. I haven't hit up the show because we got a lot of events, a lot of crypto, blockchain, Web3 events taking place here in sunny side Dubai. So I got to meet up a lot of people. Uh, I mean, traffic is crazy. Uh, this, you know, so many people really trying to, figure out, crypto, blockchain. You got people from all over the world just coming to Dubai. And I happen to meet up this really interesting guy. His name is Mehow, but I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. It's a long Polish name. So I will have him do the honors of introducing himself and also tell us his origin story into the crazy world of crypto and blockchain. Mehow, please go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, so yeah, so I'm Michał Pospieszalski. I'm the CEO of MatterFi, and we are where we secure what matters. And we are a decentralized security company that has some really interesting things going on. A little bit about me. I'm a Polish American. I'm also going to be spending a lot of time in Dubai because of the sort of deal volume that we're starting to get here or getting here. It's great. And this is also a part of the world that I'm super curious about. And I've been here for 2 weeks now, going to all the events that Marcos is talking about. I went to the World Blockchain Summit, I spoke at GITEX a couple times at the TD5 stage. Yeah. We're incubated by TD5. It's a Dubai-based incubator. That's where I met Marcos. And I've been a hacker since I was 15, and I'm 50. So I have, decades of computer experience breaking into things. And so, I took a little break from computer stuff in my mid-30s because I was kind of burned out after 20 years of just breaking code, writing code. I was a chief technology officer in the Beltway for an intelligence company, and I was also had a number of positions where I was like the senior hacker or the main hacker or the only hacker on a project. A lot of these projects were confidential and or more than that, and I did really interesting things, like I broke into airliners and slot machines and voting systems and all sorts of web stuff and embedded systems. So I was, and I was one of the first people that did a lot of software security at Cigital. I was like employee number 12 there, I think. Cigital was a company that it was bought a long time ago, like a decade ago, but we were pioneers in source code analysis, right? So we would go in, look at the source code and like find all the bugs right away, right? Instead of trying to like pen test it and miss a bunch of things. So, 4 years ago, I decided, hey, crypto's cool. Of course, I decided this right at the beginning of the first crypto winter. We would say now we're in the second one, but not in Dubai, though. In Dubai, it's all sunny. There's no crypto winter.
The weather operates differently over here.
Yeah. I mean, I live in Miami, so we have the same weather, but like the investors and the clients behave very differently here. There is a market difference here between America right now. It's actually really substantial, really substantial. Really? Substantially different environment. America's full of fear, and I'm just not a fear sort of guy. Like I just don't. I'm like, oh, you guys are afraid. Let me go to a place where people are not feeling that, and what's going on, sort of, the sort of super polarized politics and stuff in America. Being here is like vacation from all that, because it just stresses you out over there. Like here, I'm just like, all right, I just don't have to worry about it. So let me get back to the project. So 4 years ago, we started. There was a company called Stash Crypto that was working on a project called Open Transactions, which is a off-chain system based entirely on cryptographic proofs. It's an off-chain protocol. And then what I was making at the time was my co-founder, Chris Odom. I said, hey, how can I help? And he was like, well, we would love to have hardware wallets. So we went and started working on the hardware wallets, which I'm going to show you in a second, that match the system. Love that. And then a couple of years ago, the companies merged together into MatterFi. So now, like, all the old investors and new investors and both of the other companies are on the cap table, and we sort of merge into one team. And the function of that one team is to build something super revolutionary in the infrastructure space. And namely what that is a decentralized security system and crypto processing system that works wherever the data is. So the user is always controlling their data with a private key, or their transactions with a private key, just like you do in Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter where the data is, right? So in our case, it can be in a hybrid, what we call a hybridized smart contract that understands identity. And then also it can be on servers that run our custody system, and it can also be purely on chain where, as a regular asset. And we have a single app that we white label or we make custom with some development for all our clients to sort of create the environment that they want. So in our world, say I'm just going to give you an example of like one of our recent customers from here. Say you're a fintech firm that does a bunch of trading and sort of manipulation of crypto assets on behalf of your users in order to generate them revenue and generate you yourself some transaction fees, right? So in our case, we're building a single app that the end user can just download. They don't need MetaMask. They don't need to use some other wallet. They don't need to go through a complicated setup process. And we have some really big, I don't want to say anything yet because we haven't completely finished the deal making, but we have some really significant projects that you've heard of that are, Dubai based, that we're going to be, the main wallet and sort of infrastructure provider for. And
interesting.
Let me just continue with a simple example, right? So if you're a fintech and you say you're doing some sort of trading, like right now, the way that happens is somebody will send some crypto to your sort of custody, and an employee of that fintech will take that money in, or Fireblocks will, and then they're going to manipulate it somehow, and then eventually they're going to get the funds or the dividends returned back to the person that gave it to them. But it's entirely a manual process. Like the user has no autonomy in that process, right? It's like if you give your money to Coinbase, it's just Coinbase's. But a lot of users, even in super decentralized land, want to use centralized services, or they want to use sort of pseudo decentralized services, right?
Okay.
So what we did is we solved all the problems inside that and made it so that with the app you can control everything you want, also with your private key, no matter where it is. So in our case, user gets the app. They say, all right, in the app, they have available financial services. They say, all right, you can place your funds here on the XYZ financial service. And then once that money's been moved to the off-chain system based on cryptographic proofs, now they can do a bid ask or sign a contract or place an order or do an instant payment transfer off-chain still with their private keys. So it's the same experience, right? So why would you want to do everything with private keys? There's sort of three huge reasons for that. One is security, in that if everything's a private key, you eliminate like half the problems in the security space. Like there's no phishing, theft, fraud with our system. There is, another reason is KYC AML, because ecosystem providers or big liquidity providers do require some KYC AML. Heretofore, they haven't been able to have access to technology that lets the users KYC their transactions with a counterparty on chain, yet the identity on that is completely private. In fact, the transaction is completely private. So we've solved this huge onboarding problem that in our case, it's token agnostic, chain agnostic, doesn't care. We can do NFTs. Like our customers just tell us, oh, these are the chains we want, and when I say, okay, no problem. And we make them work. And then the third big reason is automation. Because in our system, our custody it's not like Fireblocks where you have HSMs that control private keys, and there's some other software that sort of interacts with these things, and then it's basically an API that the client essentially programs to go manipulate keys. In our case, all the software runs on secure enclaves on the chips of the servers themselves. So the hardware in our case isn't just a private key storage, it's a private key plus smart contract execution engine. And because everything is based on a cryptographic proof, that execution engine will always act autonomously on behalf of the user. In fact, in our off-chain system, the users get cryptographically signed receipts for everything they're doing. So even if the server disappears, they can still prove their balance. And the server can't steal from the users. So it's kind of like it's an interesting concept because
very novel
essentially
idea.
Both sides have custody. Yeah. So it's interesting because both sides have custody, right? The off-chain system has custody of all the user funds, and it's extremely difficult to steal. A hacker has to break into, say, we set it up X out of Y. So like say 5 out of 7, 7 out of 11 servers. So a hacker has to break into 7 out of 11 chips in order to steal the money, right? Which is a really tall order. And this is where my hacking background comes in, is that if I found a sort of an architecture where the chip can reliably always act in the interest of the user, and the only way to do that is via cryptographic proof, just like the only way to have actual security is to have Bitcoin on the on-chain side, right? Because usernames, passwords suck, and then there's all sorts of problems with that whole architecture that's very exploitable, right? But if I have a digitally signed off-chain or on-chain instrument that says, hey, I'm Mehow and I want to do X, Y, Z, the chip is like, oh, okay, cool. This guy's definitely him. So if he wants to withdraw, no problem, let him withdraw. And then the pool votes multi-sig, 7 out of 11 to do the withdrawal automatically. So it's always acting on behalf of the user. Yet the pool can't steal the funds from the user because it doesn't have a private key to any of them, and everything's a cryptographic proof. So we maintain state with receipts, but it's not a chain. It's the last set of receipts that maintain the state. So the advantage of this is you can run all your smart contracts and your entire business inside these secure enclaves, and you're essentially both as a business and a user. I wouldn't say it's 1,000%. It's like 100% foolproof, but it's 1,000% better than what we have now, right? It eliminates entire swaths of problems. Like the server disappears and the users have no recourse. In our case, the users always have recourse every time they transact, right? And as long as they keep their last receipt, they have state proven. And so we've automated all this, so it doesn't look like it's not hard to use. Like from a user's point of view, it's just a seamless single app in whatever context they're in, and they can do everything with a private key. So then we solved a ton of usability issues and technical issues with private key use, because right now it's like if I just want regular people to use a crypto wallet, even that's super challenging because they got to understand receiving addresses and how that works. They got to add a chain, they got to sync up a chain. So there is all this klutziness around that that we've basically algorithmed out. So it doesn't, so the UI is just like you just show up and there's balances, but everything's fully private. So let me I'll show you some of the really cool tech that we've developed. That makes the user experience like absolutely seamless, right? Because all this sounds great, but if one of the problems with big security or better security is it's frequently like not better usability, right? And if you have better usability, you usually have weaker security. And the more usable it is, the less secure it is. In our case, we're making it so that's not the case. So you have maximum security and maximum usability in the same space. So let me show you. Hold on, I got to grab something here.
All right. Yeah.
So for example, we made our own hardware wallet. Right. So this is one of our customers, Space Dogs. These guys seeing their wallet in the next month or so. We're almost done with it, but the hardware wallet's actually like this is shipping. I got a couple big orders for this already, but basically it's like a Trezor or Ledger, except it will control funds that are off chain and funds that are on chain, and it supports a bunch of really incredible usability features and privacy features I'm about to show you that no other wallet supports. And we sell these things for like $15 to our businesses, and they get to tell us like, okay, this is how I want to customize it. So like Space Dogs did like 5 different versions. Like they have a platinum one, like a black card, and then this right. So it's not, it's Space Dogs by MatterFi. Like if you look back here, it's like boom by MatterFi. Right? So we're never going to release a B2C wallet because our business is not competing with our customers. Our business is to give our customers an advantage in the space that's can really only be had with our technology, which is automation, reduced transaction fees, incredible security, ease of use, and really easy ways to create an environment for their end users. Right? It's like very difficult right now to make a custom hardware wallet for your business that then supports 30 chains. Like you can't do it unless you come to us, and that's what we do. And even if we just made wallets like that, that would still be a raging business. But we've expanded it into sort of all the things we can do with our cryptographic proof system off chain that are really, really innovative. So let me show you some of that. I'm going to hit share screen here kind of nervously. So I've never used this app before. So we'll see if it, if Google Chrome. Okay, hold on one second. It's asking Chrome to be able to control my desktop. Oh, yeah, it says I got to quit and reopen. All right, that's not good. Say later. All right, well, we'll just keep. I really want to share a screen, but I can't. Okay. Is there a window? No, none of it. All right, looks like I have to reboot Chrome for you, and that would stop the podcast. So we're just going to keep going unless you want me to.
Okay, yeah. No, that's all right. No, but I'm sure there should be a way to, there should be like a share button or something like that.
Yeah, there is. It's just saying, hey, since I almost never use Chrome, it says, hey, you haven't given Chrome permissions to share your screen, and to give it permissions, you have to reboot Chrome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I know. It's okay. It's all right. I'll tell you what. We can always have another separate podcast. Just a session. Just the nitty gritty of MatterFi. But yeah, we can just kind of get let's talk about your product, because I'm actually quite impressed how comprehensive and how well thought out it is. Like from a security side, then you talk about the usability, and it kind of reminds me of the trilemma problem. Like I forgot the third part. One is security, user design, and something else. I forgot the third thing, but I just love how you focus on the wallet side, the hardware wallet, and also the user experience, which most products out there tend to ignore that, I guess. So it's interesting that you covered a lot of bases, though. So I just wanted to put that point out to you.
Yeah, and so let me give you some examples of like the bases we've covered. So one of the things our team invented payment codes. And this is sort of super key to making ease of use and interoperability, and also enables all sorts of interesting functionality like pure peer-to-peer atomic swap with full KYC. While the users control all their identity information, it's like really distributed. It's not, hokey sort of Web3 where really you took a client server app and you called it Web3 because it's a metaverse, right?
That's more like a Web 2.5.
We're actually, yeah. I mean, but a lot of projects right now, like that's what they do. Is they're basically,
I get it.
They're not. Like if you look at their infrastructure, it's still just a client server app, except some of the funds are eventually stored in a cold wallet, right? But like until the funds, and all those things are tokens, right? In our world, you can have an entire metaverse that sits inside this wallet app, and all the sort of economic functions that a user performs inside the metaverse are done with private keys and cryptographic proofs. And the experience between off-chain and on-chain is completely seamless.
Yeah,
it's the same experience. So one thing that we've invented is payment codes. So let me tell you about payment codes because no one knows about this, right? So payment codes were originally specified by Justice Random. It's new to just about everybody. That's what I'm saying. I'm always explaining this. People are like, "Wait, what? That's possible?" Like, yeah, it's super possible. So we wrote BIP 47, or Justice did, back in 2015 before I was involved with the project. And that was payment codes for Bitcoin. And since we've expanded it to work with any chain. So we have the first implementation of payment codes on Ethereum, on Casper. Casper is one of our main clients. So we'll be releasing their wallet to public beta here, very shortly in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Along with Casper. So you'll be able to actually download it, use it, But what are payment codes? So right now we have a problem in crypto is that people got to generate receiving addresses. That's a usability problem. The other thing is it's a sort of integrity and security problem because they got to manage all this addressing manually, and generally what people do is they're like, okay, well, this address I'm going to generate for, this particular, transactions that I'm doing, maybe, and then this other one for this other one. Maybe one's my mining receiving address and the other one is my, my savings wallet. The third one is, what I use with DeFi, whatever, right? So it's this entirely manual process. And lastly, if you get it wrong, right, then you lost your money. And another thing that can happen is, hackers can go in and randomly generate new receiving addresses that match, the beginning and end of your receiving address and claim that it's, you, right? And try to steal your funds that way by basically spoofing your receiving address. So that's like a specific problem that exchanges are running into that, we completely solve. It's not possible in our system for any of that to happen. Because with payment codes, there are essentially 4 attributes I want to talk about. The first one being the ease of use. So you can take a payment code, which is a QR code. It looks like an address, except it's got a different prefix. You can post that on your Instagram. And with that single address, you can receive any crypto as long as you're using our wallets. We don't have to change any blockchains to do this. It's completely done inside the wallet because our wallets will dynamically compute the receiving addresses. So the user doesn't even have to bother. So they can just post this QR code like online, say, send me crypto. And then you might be like, but now I'll be able to look up all those balances on chain. And I'm like, you won't. As a third party observers have no correlation between the on-chain transactions and the payment codes that derive the receiving addresses for those on-chain transactions. The only thing anyone can know is if I've transacted with you and I sent you some funds, then my wallet will be able to compute that I sent funds to you or I received funds from you with 100% cryptographic proof, meaning that like there's no way to fake it. If I send to a payment code, I am for sure sending to a private key associated with that payment code. And when we start up the experience, we have a software wallet, but we also have soft plus hard, where this thing will is basically got a chip inside it made by Samsung that's got a radiation entropy engine. So it's listening for the radioactive noise of the universe, and that's where it gets its entropy. and he'll generate the 12-word seed, display it to you once, and then that's it. You're set up. And you'll get a payment code along with that. And now you can just take your payment code and paste it everywhere. And no one knows how much money you received, right? So what we have working now is the first payment codes for Casper, Ethereum, all the Bitcoin chains.
Yeah.
But if you think about what I just said, there's a very powerful corollary here. So, the first thing is the usability. The second thing, I said there was 4 things. The second thing is the privacy.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a mixer. We're not like taking funds and sticking them in some vague black pool, then pulling them back out. But because the addresses are managed in such a way that they're disconnected from the payment codes,
yeah,
third-party users cannot compute, what's going on. So me and you have like PayPal-like functionality,
right?
We have the ease of use of Venmo or PayPal for all crypto on our off-chain. Right. And third-party users, it stays super private, right? Yeah. So, okay, a couple extra corollaries to payment, codes. Number 3 is it's really easy to map English names to payment codes. So, for example, we're integrated with FIO already. FIO protocol already supports our tech, and we call them Matter codes because it's MatterFi. Get it?
Hey, love
it. But it's really easy for me to say have a universal name system. So we're actually implementing this in the Casper Association wallet, where I get in the wallet and the wallet asks me, hey, do you want to register a global name? Like an easy to use English name, so people don't have to send to your payment code. They can just send to your name. Right. And when I do that, I'm basically making this on-chain database. We're storing this data in a smart contract that says Mehow is this actual payment code. So now people can just send stuff to @Mehow. Right. And they don't have to, cut and paste the payment code or scan the QR code. Not that anybody's not, in crypto, they're not used to that. But remember, what I'm trying to do is like go beyond crypto. Like this is not about, oh, I want crypto users to use our solution. Our crypto users will definitely use our solution because it's just awesome. But I want regular users to be able to use it. So I have to have solutions where, grandma can use it as easily as email. Right. And so that's what all the usability, privacy, English name features do. But there's a 4th feature to payment codes that make them just insanely disruptive and powerful in the space, which is that, and we've got some patents upcoming on this as well. So I'm not going to get super into it. I've written 5 patents so far. I have 5 more that I'm working on right now. And nice. The reason is that our space, no one's done this before, so it's like ripe for innovation, which is one of the things I love. Like the reason I love being a hacker is I got to do new stuff, and also then propose new solutions to the stuff I broke into. Now we have this entire new palette, like an entire new sort of paradigm where no one's built it before, right? And they've just built approximations essentially, and I would say that, no disrespect to Fireblocks, but they're an approximation of our system. Like they're further ahead as a business, but they're behind as a technology. Is what I would say, right? And what they're doing though is awesome because they solved the custody problem, right? But I was like, all right, custody problem solved for who? The business, the user, and we're solving it for both. But let me give you the 4th thing, which is if there's one little tiny part of the podcast everybody should listen to, this is it. So if you're using payment codes, you can have third-party KYC/ML verifiers basically sign a payment code as if it's a Web SSL certificate and prove that this payment code belongs to this identity and digitally signed. So now you have an identity system that works on or off chain, but the user controls those credentials. So the way it works is inside the app, a user would have a KYC/ML experience. Maybe they show their copy of their passport, driver's license, or whatever, right? Or enter some data. And then a third party provider will check that data, and then they come back and digitally sign, yes, this is, Mehow, and he is over 18 and he's a resident of these countries.
Gotcha.
And now that the user has the data, and the data's cryptography linked to their payment code. So there's no way to sort of fake the data. You can't have a third party sign a fake payment code, right?
Gotcha.
Like it's going to be your payment code, right? And really, if there were attacks on this, that would be the way to do it. But it's like extremely tricky. But anyway, the user has the payment code, the extra credentials information stored inside their system, right? Now, payment codes also allow for secret worldwide chat. So we have this entire communication system that also works inside our wallet, and the wallets can automatically use this communication. So now you can have something really interesting happen. You can have a user now send money on chain to either, a custodian like our custody system or any custodian. You can have them send that money to a smart contract, or you can send that money to a counterparty. Now, that counterparty can be like, okay, we received money from this guy, but in our case, we need to know who he is, because maybe we're an institution or we're a government, right? And we need to, we got a lot of liquidity, but we have regulations. Right. Now we can request the user provide their identity information, and we have 100% cryptographic proof that we actually sent money to me. So it's not like, Coinbase or everything else where there's KYC AML, and then at the end of that whole process, they're like, okay, send us some crypto, and they pray it's from you, but it could be from, Money Laundering Inc. And when you withdraw, they pray it's going to your private key, but it could be going to Money Laundering Inc. Right? In our case, because of the way the payment codes work, that's impossible. Like when you register your payment code, any KYC AML it, and it's got a digitally signed certificate that this is really Mehow, right?
Yeah.
And those can be blinded or unblinded, right? So depending on the environment, we do different schemes for this. But now the business or whoever the counterparty in the interaction is can always know what someone's identity is. Therefore, they can always know what they transacted with that identity. Therefore, they can comply with KYC AML and actually any fintech reg for transactions that are purely on chain, which is really mind blowing, because right now, if I'm an institution and I want to deal with people on chain, I can't, because I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And in that case, the counterparty would be like, hey, user, I want to see your identity credentials. And the user will be like, all right, cool. Here's my identity credentials. And now the counterparty is like, okay, great. So now I am allowed to interact with you on and off chain and provide, for example, massive sources of liquidity. And you can plug this into sort of all the environments we created, including an atomic swap. So we have the world's first KYC AML capable atomic swap that actually has the distributed security in the hands of the user. So it's not like you're being forced into revealing your identity, and here's one of the paradoxes, because we have a UI tweak coming that's, something that actually came out of the last week of discussions here with clients, is that in our system, even if I, take my payment code that this thing is generated for me, and I attach my identity to it, and I have an alias and all this stuff, the only thing the public knows is there is a user of the system, and this is identity. They can't correlate anything that goes on chain with those credentials. So it's like you have this, you can steal the whole database of aliases and payment codes, and you'd be like, all right, well, here's the aliases and payment codes. Now, what do these guys do? As a third-party observer, mathematically impossible to compute what they did. Yeah. You have no idea, right? So even though you have your identity information out there, like, for example, say your identity information is on, it's on Instagram. Like on Instagram, you got a handle and a bunch of pictures of you. So pretty much everybody knows, okay, this is you. Maybe you got a blue check mark too, right? Well, what if that was digitally payment code, right? People would be like, whoa, wouldn't everybody now know all the crypto I'm receiving? Because I gave away this personal information. And here's the paradox. In our system, we've mathematically solved that. You can have a public identity and receive whatever crypto you want, but no one knows how much crypto you receive. The only thing they know from that public identity is like you set up an identity.
Gotcha.
But because users generally feel weird, they're like, okay, well, if I'm putting my driver's license in this thing, everybody's going to know what I'm doing. I can't post the payment code online. So we're actually making mostly a UI adjustment that just makes it so that the select, we can make it so that select identity data only goes through a secure channel.
Interesting.
So that users just feel better. Even though, like, the only people that know that it's them is the counterparty they just transacted with, and they consented to that. They did that, right? So it's a lot of paradoxes in what we do. It's like we have worldwide identity with full privacy all at the same time. And then we have custody where both the business and the have full custody. You're like, how can you have, like, who's got the money? And in our case, it's literally both people. It's a cryptographic mind meld, if you will. And so that way, if one party doesn't trust the other party, they don't need to. They've got cryptographic proof of exactly what's going on between the two of them. Like, what was the last transaction or last 30? The system will always know, but it's distributed, and that both the client and the server side, the custody side, both know that state. So they can't dispute it because everything is done with private keys. So, if you're listening to this, we're doing a raise right now, but I think we just closed it. But if you really want, I can, probably make more happen for, select Dubai investors because I really like it here. Like, I think we're going to do our whole Series A out of Dubai. Right now we're in a phase where we, as a company, we got a few million in revenue. We've raised a few million. So our revenue and the money that we've raised are actually equal, right? So we're a startup that's not like massively in the hole. And we're a team of about 20 people, and we're doing like essentially a bridge. We were doing a bridge round to, so we have some runway to add more clients. And, it turns out if you spend a couple of weeks in Dubai and your product's good, you're going to get a lot of clients. And some of these clients I'm really happy. They're like major projects that everybody knows in the space. And I can't say who they are because they probably want to remain confidential right now. But they, really big projects in the Muslim community, for example, is one of the projects that we're working on. And it'll make it so that, everybody that's not crypto traditional can all of a sudden use crypto.
Gotcha.
And they'll be like, wow, okay, well, this is completely different from everything else. And then we're going to do a fairly substantial Series A after we onboard a few more clients, expand the team a little bit, get the sales pipeline going, beyond just me. Because, our sales cycle is, it's not like we're selling a very basic widget. We're selling a really sophisticated, B2B infrastructure. And once people get it, they're like, "Oh my god, the greatest thing ever!" And I'm like, "Cool, yeah." It's like that. And my job is to sort of, very calmly explain it all until people have that, aha breakthrough moment, which that's when I know I'm like, okay, now we understand, because this is like, I can do so much different stuff with this setup, right? So like, let me give you one more feature that's really killer. So which is the atomic swap. So atomic swaps are swaps where
interrupt. Hey Mehow, can you just explain to just my audience about atomic swap? I mean,
okay, so that's exactly what I was going to do. Before I explain the solution, I was going to explain the problem.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry. I apologize.
So,
because sometimes not many people know about it. So go ahead, please.
Like right now, you can have centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges, and you can also have atomic swap. So those are the three ways to trade. So a centralized exchange, like Coinbase, you're giving their money to Coinbase, and then you don't have any custody, but you pray that when you enter your username and password, they act on your behalf and don't just give all your money to some entity or have it get stolen, right? Which happens all the freaking time, right? Like spoofs of username and passwords, SIM steals, right? To try to basically get that phone out to, in our case, SIM stealing is completely impossible, because to steal the money, even if though it's on a custody system somewhere, somebody's got to steal the private key inside the chip.
All right.
So SIM hacking won't do shit. It won't work at all. Right? Yet the loss of usability in our case is zero. Right? So, people think we've solved security. We haven't solved security, because if we had, we wouldn't be having all this fraud in the crypto space. And that's why I'm here to solve. Let me get back to atomic swap or trading in general, right? The second type of trading is a smart contract, where, it's like a pancake swap, sushi swap, Uniswap. All these things are smart contracts that, basically you're sending your funds to, and then the smart contract acts as an exchange. And, when somebody else sends their funds, they're going to match up, the bid ask orders essentially. Right. And when, two people match, it'll swap their assets and send it back to the user. So that's another way to do it. But what if you wanted to trade with no custodians at all? Like, there is no third party. It's just you and your counterparty. Like, if me and you meet face to face, I can be like, oh, here's my Bitcoin. And you say same in BCH. And we're fairly sure that, that transaction is not going to go awry because we're face to face.
Right.
So what if we created a digital equivalent of that, where worldwide you could have this happen, and you can have institutional people that require KYC AML participate in it. And no one's built this thing. Yeah. Like, there's a reason like Goldman Sachs is not on Uniswap.
Right.
Because I'm sure they'd love to be there.
Yeah,
there's a ton of business to be had. There's a ton of assets. Yeah, right. And that's true for every government, every major corporation, anybody that's used to offering traditional fintech services. And typically users want those fintech services because they're using them today. That's why that is a that's why Goldman Sachs is big, because ultimately there's a lot of people that like investing, with a big bank. Yeah. Right. And, but they can't get access to that liquidity or that ecosystem in the crypto sphere, and there've been obviously various attempts at this. People make a side chain or something. Right. Yeah. But, the problem with all that is all it's dependent on a chain. Like, one thing that maybe isn't obvious, but I'll point out, is our system is completely chain agnostic. It's like Lightning Network for everything, not just Bitcoin. And it does everything instead of just payments. When I say everything, it's literally everything. It's whatever functionality the business needs. We put that in a cryptographically proof smart contract. Right. And now it's running an automated cryptographic proof, which automatically just by itself eliminates 75% of problems in the computer security space while sacrificing no usability. All right. So let me get back to atomic swap. So traditionally, the way atomic swap, the very first ideas of atomic swap were, okay, fine. So I want to somehow have and what the word atomic means is that it just happens at once or it doesn't happen at all. So in an atomic transaction, and like if you're in programming, for example, a mutex is generally atomic. Basically what it's guaranteeing is that inside the code, everything stops for a second. These two transactions or set of operations get executed, and then things can resume back to multi-threading again. That's a super simple explanation. But what you want is there's certain operations that you need to either happen in entirety or not at all. And a trade is one of them. Right? Because in a trade, you have, one party sending money from A to B, Alice to Bob, and the other one's going Bob to Alice. And obviously, if only one of those transactions goes through, then you've got theft or fraud. Right? Yeah. Like, because people theoretically, they've agreed, we want this to be atomic. So you want that to both transactions to happen or for them to not to happen. So the way that's traditionally, like the first idea of atomic swap was, okay, so say we have two similar chains like Bitcoin and BCH, where the transaction essentially formatting and signing is very, very similar. So we'll sign a transaction that both parties sign. And when we upload that transaction on the Bitcoin chain, I send you Bitcoin. When we upload the same transaction on the BCH chain, you send me BCH. And voila, we have atomic swap, right? The problem is there's two problems with that. One is you need similar chains. The other one, there's no KYC AML anything. Like, I don't really know who you are. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, reliably, like in a peer-to-peer environment like that, no institutional liquidity can at all participate unless they suddenly have a desire to forgo their millions and go to jail. Right. So, in our system, which I won't describe how it works because we're still working on the sort of intellectual property side of it.
Okay. Fair enough.
It is that you can swap any two things with no custodians and optionally user controlled KYC.
Okay.
So you can have a sushi swap sort of setup.
Yeah.
Except there is no custody contract at all. You're giving your money to anybody else. It can't be stolen, therefore. I mean, how many smart contracts get hacked? It happens every week. Every week there is another $100 million left of a smart contract.
Especially those bridges, right?
People were like, whoa, DeFi. I mean, yeah. So people steal like crazy. In our case, stealing from our bridge, so to speak, it's not really a bridge because it's more like a custody system.
Yeah.
Is well nigh impossible. It's incredible. It's an incredibly tall order. You need incredible amounts of resources to be able to pull anything like this off. To the point that I've never pulled it off, like in similar environments that I was, faced with earlier in my career where, if it was a server, it's fairly easy to get into, there's always vulnerabilities in, the OS and stuff. But if everything was embedded, the critical functionality was embedded, the attack surface was so small and such a crazy unknown, if you have to break into chips to get at something, remember that almost all the hacks these days, none of them are breaking into chips.
Right.
You never hear a story of like, hackers stole $100 million inside an HSM, hardware security module, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. What does happen every week is hacker saw software that was running in a smart contract online, reverse engineered it, figured out how to break in, and voila, right? So this sort of mating between hardware and software is really valuable. And then, but let me finish the atomic swap discussion. So, what you want is you want a peer-to-peer system that allows for optionally people to be able to KYC ML each other. And so what we've solved is it trades between any pairs at all. And there is no custodian. And Goldman Sachs can now participate in a pure peer-to-peer on-chain transaction. And when you transact with Goldman Sachs, they will know your identity because you transacted with them, but no one else will. So it's all the best things of, okay, as a user, I want to be able to have that option. Obviously, right. Why not?
Yeah.
Certainly conventional fintech users are just used to that. They're like, this is normal, but they weren't able to do it in crypto. And
right.
They only had an approximation of it, it wasn't possible at all in DeFi. They had an approximation of it with like a Coinbase, because really it's still not, there's no guarantee that the sending and receiving addresses have anything to do with the identity that was presented. You can still money launder all you want. Like literally, you can money launder all you want. And so they're like, oh my God, we got to use all this chain analysis and stuff. And in our system, we've completely solved that. It just doesn't, that problem does not exist.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of excitement from the institutional fintech segment, which is obviously big in Dubai, about our tech.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
So I feel like, without a deck or anything, because I have all this stuff working, by the way. I mean, most of it, right? So the whole ecosystem is not completely finished yet, but most of the stuff I talked about, and some of it we're about to release to the public. But
gotcha. Yeah.
I feel like I pretty much covered, from a crypto interest view, I think I've covered it. So happy to take your questions. And then I can also share contact info.
No, sure. No, definitely. No, look, for me, personally, I'm big into, privacy, and also, how to increase adoption on the local level, get, more users, to use crypto and blockchain-based solutions, so, But but what is really fascinating, because I've been diving into zero knowledge proof, homomorphic encryption, and you use I'm assuming that you are using all that stuff, but it's kind of fascinating, um, how you build your product, and also you're also looking at also from institutions, how to get institutions into DeFi. And the problem with the public blockchains is that it's all public, and there has to be privacy but also compliance. So how do you balance that? And so definitely uh, really fascinating, to hear share, about atomic swaps, and the issues with, sexes and dexes, and um, trying to, but also sharing your previous career too. So it's really, I would say, fascinating, but I also love the way you explained it. I mean, it's pretty simple. You didn't use a lot of jargons and stuff, which is great. I think we need more people like you out there in the field. Trying to get regular Joes and Janes out there to like get a piece of the action. Absorb some knowledge just a little bit. So for me, I really enjoyed it. So that's why I'm glad that I got you on the podcast, just to have this, a fireside conversation. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Cool. And, folks want to get in touch with me. If you're, business in the Middle East, we definitely, whatever your business is, if you're crypto curious, we're the thing that makes it all work. Right. So I've yet to have a use case scenario where users like, well, we're doing this and we want to now do it with crypto, and we want to, be in the crypto environment. We want to have hardware. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And it takes us, usually 2, 3, 4 months to finish rolling out a product because we're customizing it as we go along. But then what you get is a bespoke thing that no one has, right? So I'm Mehow at MatterFi. It's MEHOW at MatterFi.com. And one other thing that I'll point out that, you were talking about this decentralized exchanges and smart contracts. We have a way that a method for smart contracts don't have private keys generally. Well, they don't have private keys. So they can't initially. You'd think they wouldn't know how to compute a user's identity, but in our case, they can. So you can have a smart contract that say, okay, receive some funds for something. And then it says, all right, I need to know what your identity is to provide the functionality you've requested as a user. And if I don't know the identity, I just send the money back. But the smart contract can understand, and this is all automatic, obviously, the smart contract can understand who they're interacting with and check their KYC AML on a voluntary basis. Meaning that like the user will say, all right, I do want to provide my identity to this counterparty, which then enables additional functionality. Which, if you think about it, here's another thing no one's ever done. It's a smart contract that can treat people differently based on their identity credentials. Right now, if you throw up a smart contract, it treats everybody the same. It causes all sorts of regulatory problems because you're like, okay, I hope I don't get jailed in one of the 150 countries in the world for doing what I'm doing as a developer. And you're just hoping, because you have no idea what laws you're breaking in Tanzania, right? You're just a developer and you're trying to make some cool DeFi, right? And then you're like, well, hopefully it's all anonymous, so no one will find out who I am, except that's not that hard to do, right? And the problem is, your project's now not getting promoted anywhere because there aren't like, regions that are like, hell yeah, do this illegal thing. What they want is some assurance that the laws are being followed. And what I want is our users to voluntarily be able to decide whether they want to participate or not. And if they don't want to participate, fine, no problem, no privacy leak whatsoever. If they do want to participate, the only thing you're leaking privacy to is the counterparty that you've consented to leak information to, right?
Okay.
And you've done that because you want what they're offering. You want to access that DeFi functionality. So in our case, the identity and credentialing system works regardless of where the backend is. It can be on the custody system on a bunch of servers inside chips. It can be on smart contracts, and it can also be peer-to-peer. So in all those scenarios, we use the same identity setup, which makes it, mind expand. The possibilities are pretty mind expanding, right? And
Right.
I'm learning from our time, like because they're the experts in the fintech. I'm not like a hardcore trader or a guy that's like, oh yeah, man, bonds are going to go up and this other stuff's going to go down, and like this is what's going to happen the next 6 months. This is where you should invest. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm an algorithm creator, right, and inventor, and I like to execute and deliver really groundbreaking products. That's my jam, and so I'm learning from our customers, like, well, we could do this, and I'm like, yeah, wow, that's actually really cool. That's their trade secrets. They're not ours. We're just helping them implement it in a new way, but the system enables things to happen that weren't possible before.
Yeah.
It can create worldwide sort of crazy amounts of peer-to-peer liquidity. You can have hybrid on and off chain smart contract environments where, say, the security critical stuff is running in a private smart contract that no one has access to except the server operator. And he's barely got I can get into technically how we do that, but basically it's extremely unlikely that anything bad will go south there. And that'll stop 99% of the theft, because the hackers can't get to the code.
Yeah.
So it's There you go.
Yeah. No, hey, Mehow. No, this is really awesome. I know we are about that time, but definitely I would love to have you on again. Maybe that I think that maybe next couple of weeks after all this event craziness, I would love to have like a separate section just showing your deck, like what you're working on. So I know, but I just love what we're working with. It is really cool. It's a lot to marinate, but just like your clients, I also got some ideas in my head too. Wait a minute, is it possible I could do something with this? Like it's actually quite revolutionary in many ways. So
yeah, everybody's reaction to this is like, if they've been in crypto for 4 or 5 years and they meet me, they're like, okay, give me 2 days to think about it. And then they come back and they're like,
right.
okay, can we do this, this,
this?
And the answer is like, yes. Because it's like, really, it's like, okay, it's a whole nother level where now, crypto doesn't just live on chain. It can live everywhere, and it's super easy to use, right? So, and it can perform any fintech or just really any software thing you want it to do. And so people are like, okay, I can make a whole new business XYZ. And that's our job, is not to steal that or operate that. We're never going to custody anything as a business. We're just software developers, right? So we're here to empower our customers to, create entirely new markets, entirely new ways of working, or revolutionize the space that they're already in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So that's our mission.
Awesome. Hey, yeah. That's awesome. Hey, Mehow, thank you so much. Don't hit the leave button yet, but hey, XE.com fam, it's about that time. We gotta go. Mehow, he got other people to meet up. It's crazy in Dubai, so I know, yeah, he has a lot of meetings. So, but definitely, I would love to have him on the show again. Maybe after, whenever things kind of cool down over here, and I get a break too. So I need a vacation, but definitely, next couple of days, Mehow, I'm gonna be thinking about some stuff, what I can work with. So, anyways, XE.com fam, we gotta go. This is your host for the most of the time here in Sunnyside, Dubai. I'm Marcos Inhita. Thank you for tuning in, and definitely will leave Mehow's his contact details and some info links below for your perusal. So y'all be good, y'all be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Right, hold up. Let me just